Good. That's it. Good. Super. That's it.
There are moments that history records and moments that history feels. This was both a private room, a document that has taken months of careful legal preparation to reach this desk, a king whose hands have signed thousands of papers across a reign that has asked everything of him, and a pen that will not move for a long moment, because the man holding it understands, with a completeness that the room around him cannot absorb, exactly what his signature is about to mean. For Catherine, for William, for the monarchy that will outlast him, for everything he could not give the woman who came before her. Charles signs, and before the pen leaves the paper, the tears are already falling. The document, what Catherine's historic ascension actually means.
It is amazing to think that you and I have known one another for more than 60 years.
For talking to us. This is a slightly peculiar, unusual way of doing an interview. We are living in very unusual times.
Not every document that passes across a monarch's desk changes history. Most of them are the routine machinery of a constitutional role: approvals, appointments, the formal processing of decisions already made through the appropriate governmental channels that require the king's signature as the final constitutional step in their implementation. Significant in their aggregate, unremarkable in their individual moments. This document is different, and to understand why it is different requires understanding something about how the British monarchy formally structures the positions of the people within it, something that the public version of royal life rarely makes visible in its full complexity. The position Catherine holds as Princess of Wales is formally significant, constitutionally grounded, the natural consequence of her marriage to the heir to the throne. It is not a position that requires a special document to create. It came with the marriage, with the progression of William's position within the line of succession. It is, in the most direct sense, a position she has held since the moment William became Prince of Wales. But positions in the monarchy exist on two levels, the formal and the functional. The formal level is what the title says. The functional level is what the person actually does, and what authority and powers are actually available to them within the institutional structure. And the gap between the formal and the functional, in Catherine's case, is what this document is designed to close. Sources familiar with the preparation of the document describe it as addressing the specific question of Catherine's functional authority within the monarchy in a way that her formal title alone has never fully captured. It formalizes certain powers and certain institutional responsibilities that have been operating informally. Catherine has been exercising in practice because the circumstances required someone to exercise them, and she was both available and capable. But that has never been formally conferred in a way that makes them an established and documented feature of her institutional role. The historic dimension of the Ascension is precisely this formalization, because what is being formally conferred has not been formally conferred on a Princess of Wales in this manner before, not in the specific combination of responsibilities and authorities that this document addresses, not in a way that gives the future queen a formally documented institutional standing that exists independently of her husband's position, and that survives whatever changes in the configuration of the monarchy the coming years may bring. That independence is the key word, and it is the key to understanding why this ascension is historic. Previous formalization of royal authority has always been structured around the position of the monarch or the heir. The powers and the responsibilities flow from those positions. They are delegated, dependent. They exist because of the relationship to the throne rather than as standing independently of it. What Charles is signing gives Catherine something different, a formal institutional standing that is her own, grounded in her contribution to the institution rather than solely in her marriage to the man who will lead it. A documented acknowledgement that the monarchy's functioning in the current period has been dependent on her in ways that her formal title has never officially reflected. Now, here is where the document becomes more significant than a simple formalization of existing practice. It is also, sources suggest, a provision, a formal institutional arrangement that anticipates the transition of power and secures Catherine's position within the structure of the monarchy in a way that does not require the transition to have occurred before taking effect. A document that says, in formal legal and constitutional language, that regardless of what the coming months and years bring, regardless of the specific timing of the formal transition, Catherine's institutional standing is established, documented, not dependent on the goodwill of any subsequent configuration to be honored. That is not a routine administrative decision. That is a king using the authority available to him in the current moment to secure a future he wants to ensure, to protect something that matters to him from the uncertainty that his health situation introduces into every calculation about the coming transition. He is signing the document now, while he can, while the authority to sign it is unambiguously his. The decision is his to make rather than his to bequeath to someone else to make after him. The urgency of the now is the detail that sources who have been close to the preparation of the document keep returning to. It was not prepared on a leisurely institutional timeline. It was prepared with the specific urgency of people who understand that the window in which Charles can sign it under conditions of full, unambiguous royal authority may be more limited than the public communications around his health have suggested. He wanted it signed before the window closed, and that wanting, that specific, urgent, protective wanting, is what makes the tears that accompanied the signature so much more than a sentimental response to a significant moment. They are the tears of a man who knows what he is doing and why he is doing it now rather than later, who understands that the document he is signing is both a gift to his daughter-in-law and an acknowledgement of something he cannot fully name in any room where other people are present. The acknowledgement that the timing matters, that he is signing this now because later may not carry the same certainty, that the pen in his hand and the authority it represents are things he is exercising with a consciousness of their potential impermanence that the public performance of a recovering king never fully captures. Catherine's historic ascension is real, permanent, formally and legally established by the signature that Charles left on that document. The question of what it cost him to put it there is the question that the tears answer, partly. Catherine's journey, what she did to earn this moment.
Therapy treatment. The last 9 months have been incredibly tough for us as a family. Life as you know it can change in an instant.
Champion of charitable causes and a princess, the wife and mother of future kings. Catherine first
and unpredictable for everyone, especially those closest to you. With humility.
Let's be honest about something that the fairy tale version of Catherine's story has always obscured. This was not easy, none of it. Not the early years inside an institution that is designed by its nature to be difficult for the people it absorbs. Not the sustained public scrutiny that began before the wedding and has never fully lifted. Not the adjustment to a life that requires the surrender of privacy so total and so permanent that most people who have not lived it cannot fully imagine its weight. Not the performance of composure through things that would have broken people with considerably more institutional preparation than Catherine had when she arrived. She came in as a commoner. That word carries less weight in public conversation than it carries inside the institution it describes. Inside those walls, it is a real distinction between people who were prepared from birth for what the monarchy requires and people who were not. Between those who learned the institution's language as children and those who had to acquire it as adults in full public view, with no margin for the visible mistakes that learning always involves. Catherine acquired it without visible mistakes, in real time, under the specific and relentless scrutiny of a media environment that was waiting, in its early years, for the error that would define the narrative of who she was. The error never came. What came instead was something more valuable and more durable than a clean record. A demonstrated capacity for the role that went beyond the absence of mistakes into something genuinely constructive. A contribution to the institution that started showing itself in the specific and accumulating way that genuine contribution reveals itself over time. The charitable work, developed with a focus and a consistency that went beyond the performative charity of celebrity patronage into something that sources inside those organizations describe as genuinely invested. Her commitment to early childhood development, to mental health, to the specific areas where she identified both a personal resonance and an institutional gap that her position could address in ways that went beyond the ceremonial. The institutional stability she provided to William, which sounds abstract until you understand what William's life has required of the person beside him. The specific combination of public demands and private strains and institutional pressures that the future king carries, and the specific value of having a partner who absorbs none of that weight externally, who processes it internally, who maintains the surface that the institution needs while fully sharing the reality beneath it. That partnership is not something that can be faked across the length of time and the range of circumstances it has been demonstrated through. It is either real or it becomes visible as performance eventually. In over a decade of the most scrutinized public life in the world, it has remained consistent. Charles sees this, has seen it developing across the years of his relationship with Catherine. Sources close to the king describe his view of her with a warmth and a respect that goes considerably beyond the formal appreciation of a father-in-law for a capable daughter-in-law. He sees in her something specific, something that his experience of watching the monarchy from the inside for his entire life gives him the perspective to identify and value with precision. He sees someone who genuinely loves the institution, not the power of it, not the status of it, not the access and the influence and the particular world it opens. The institution itself, its history, its continuity, its role as a thread connecting the British people to something that has persisted across the disruptions of centuries, and that requires, in every generation, people who are willing to pay the personal cost of maintaining it. Catherine is willing to pay that cost, has been paying it for over a decade, and the specific period of Charles's illness has made that willingness visible in a way that the ordinary machinery of royal life, when it is functioning normally, does not always surface. During the months when Charles's capacity to carry the full weight of the role has been reduced by the health situation that the palace has managed so carefully in its public communications, Catherine has been present, specifically and practically present, not in a way that has produced headlines or announcements, in the way that genuine support operates, quietly, consistently, in the rooms and the decisions and the institutional moments where the monarchy's functioning has required a steadying presence. She has been that presence, without being asked, without the specific request that would transform a voluntary contribution into a formal obligation. She simply saw what was needed and provided it. That is the thing that Charles is formalizing through this document. Not the years of public service, which are already a matter of record, not the absence of visible mistakes, which is notable but not by itself historic, the specific and practical contribution to the monarchy's functioning during the period of greatest stress in the current reign, the period when the institution most needed someone of genuine commitment to step into the spaces that a king's illness creates. And when someone did, sources close to Charles describe the decision to initiate the preparation of the Ascension document as connected directly to a specific moment during his treatment, when the reality of his health situation was at its most acute. A moment when the question of what the monarchy would look like if his capacity to lead it were suddenly and significantly reduced required an honest answer. The honest answer was Catherine. Not William alone, William and Catherine, together, as the functioning center of an institution that might need them to carry it before the formal transition of power created the constitutional basis for them to do so. The document Charles signed is the formal acknowledgement of that answer. It just took him a long time to get the pen to the paper, without it meaning everything it meant when he finally did. Charles's tears, what they mean and what they carry.
Well, as I say, over 30 years, tried to find ways, meeting the particular.
Kings do not cry in public. That is not a rule that was written down anywhere. It does not appear in any constitutional document or any protocol guide or any of the formal or informal instructions that the monarchy uses to shape the behavior of the people within it. It is simply understood, has been understood for as long as there have been people watching kings and drawing conclusions from what they observe. The performance of monarchy requires a specific kind of emotional containment, not the absence of feeling, but the management of it, the consistent, sustained, publicly maintained separation between what is being felt and what is being shown. The appearance of equanimity in circumstances that would produce visible distress in a person not trained in the specific emotional discipline that this role demands. Charles has maintained that discipline across a reign that has tested it severely. Through his own cancer diagnosis delivered to a global audience that had been watching his family's every move for decades. Through the Harry situation and all the specific private grief that the public account of it only partially reflects. Through the loss of his mother, through everything, he held, publicly, with the composure that the institution required, the tears that came when he signed Catherine's Ascension. Documents were not public in the conventional sense. There was no camera, no formal audience. The room held only a small number of people whose presence the signing required. The witnesses, the legal advisors, the people whose institutional role connected them to the moment rather than their personal relationship to it. And William, the tears came in that room, in front of those people, without the full apparatus of public management that has always been available to Charles when emotional moments have occurred in contexts where the audience was larger and the institutional stakes of visible feeling were higher. They came because the room was small enough and the moment was significant enough that the management failed, or more precisely, was allowed to fail. Because there is a distinction between emotional containment that holds under pressure and emotional containment that the person exercising it decides, in a specific moment, is no longer required. Sources present describe the tears not as a sudden collapse of composure, but as a slow arrival. The pen is moving across the document. The signature is being completed. And then the quality of Charles's stillness in the moment after the pen lifted changed from controlled focus to something else. The particular stillness of someone sitting with the full weight of what they have just done. And then the tears. What they carry is the question that matters. Because tears at a moment like this do not come from a single place. They come from the intersection of multiple things, multiple grief streams, multiple layers of meaning that converge at the specific point of a pen completing a signature on a document that formally changes the future of the institution he has devoted his life to. The first layer is his health, the mortality dimension. The specific awareness that this document is being signed now is because now is when it can be signed with certainty, with full authority, without the complications that a deterioration in his condition would introduce into every institutional act he performs. He knows this, the people in the room know this, and the knowledge sits in the atmosphere of the signing with a weight that nobody articulates and everybody carries. The Diana dimension is the second layer, and it is the one that sources are most careful and most consistent about identifying as present in the room at the moment of signing. Catherine occupies a position in the formal structure of the British monarchy that was supposed to be Diana's. That was Diana's. For the years of a marriage that produced the two sons who are now the central figures in the institution's future, and whose personal histories were shaped more by that marriage's failure than by almost anything else in their lives. Charles signed away something to Diana that he could not give back. The future that the formal position she held was supposed to carry. The ascension that her own contribution to the institution and her own undeniable place in the public's heart might have led to had the marriage survived. He cannot undo that, cannot repair it, cannot reach across the years and the irreversible and give Diana's story a different ending. What he can do, what he did in that room, is signing the document that formally secures the ascension of the woman who is mothering Diana's grandchildren, who is building the future of an institution that Diana loved with a specific and publicly documented intensity. She has conducted herself through the extraordinary pressures of the position with a consistency and a dignity that represents in its own way an honoring of the standard Diana set for what it means to carry that role with genuine commitment. The tears are not for Catherine only, they are for Diana too, for the unresolvable complexity of being the man who signs this document in this institution with this history, for the fact that doing right by the future requires sitting with the full weight of how the past arrived at this point. The third layer is Harry, the son who is not in the room, who will not be formally part of whatever ceremonies or acknowledgements accompany the ascension being signed, whose absence from the monarchy's future as it is being structured through this document is not comfortable, is not something Charles has made his peace with in any way that the public performance of managing the Harry situation has suggested. Harry's absence from this moment, from this future, is a grief that Charles carries at a level that the institution has never found a way to process, because the institution requires him to continue functioning, regardless of whether the processing has been completed. The tears carry all three layers simultaneously: Diana, Harry, his own mortality. Catherine's deserved ascension arrives at a cost that nobody in that room will name, and that Charles feels in the specific and human way of someone for whom the formal act and the personal reality are, in this moment, completely inseparable. He signed the document, and the tears were the truest thing in the room. William's position, the future king, watches his wife's place in history being made.
It's entirely preventable. It is predictable. Good evening, Windsor. A huge thank you to everyone for making...
on the work that charities do in this area, which I'm sure you'll be happy about as well.
I hear that there's been a lot.
There are moments you spend your whole life moving toward without knowing they are where you are headed. William has spent his entire existence inside this institution, has known since he was old enough to understand what the institution was, that his life would be shaped by it in ways that the lives of ordinary people are not shaped by anything. He has navigated that knowledge with varying degrees of grace and difficulty across the full arc of his years. The childhood years were when the weight of it was abstract. The teenage years when it became personal and painful in ways that the public coverage of his mother's death only partially captured. The adult years of preparation and positioning, and the sustained, careful work of building toward a future that has always been coming but has never before been quite this close. He was in the room when his father signed Catherine's Ascension document, and sources who were present describe his response to the moment in terms that are more complicated and more quietly significant than the straightforward image of a grateful future king watching his wife receive her formal due. He was still, the particular stillness of someone processing multiple things simultaneously, someone for whom the moment on the surface and the moment beneath the surface are both happening at once and both requiring something of him. On the surface, his wife, receiving a formal institutional acknowledgement of what she has contributed and what she represents. A document that secures her standing in a way that the informal reality of her contribution has never been formally reflected. That makes permanent and official what has been true in practice for longer than the institution has been willing to officially acknowledge. For that dimension of the moment, sources describe William's response as one of genuine and visible emotion, not the tears his father produced. Something more contained, the specific quality of someone who does not easily show the depth of what they feel, but in whose expression the depth is nonetheless visible to the people who know them well enough to read it. He loves Catherine in the way that people love partners who have absorbed the impossible alongside them, without diminishing under its weight. Those who have been present through the things that test whether a relationship is as strong as it appears, who have demonstrated, across the full length of time and the full range of circumstances, that a life like theirs produces, that the person you chose is actually who you believed they were when you chose them. He has watched Catherine be that person through things that would have produced a different outcome with a different person, through her own illness, through the sustained pressure of being the person the institution's future depends on in a period when the institution's present has been genuinely uncertain, through the palace confrontations and the Sussex situation and the Camilla dynamics and all the specific and accumulating pressures of being where they are in this family at this moment in its history. She has been that person through all of it. The document his father just signed says so officially. But beneath that dimension of the moment, there is something else that William is sitting with, something that sources describe in terms that require a different kind of attention: Charles's tears. William watched his father cry in a private room, without the managed containment that the public version of Charles maintains across every visible institutional moment. The genuine, unmanaged tears of a man whose emotional response to the significance of what he was doing was too large for the available containment. And William, who has spent his entire life trying to understand his father, who has had a relationship with Charles that has been as complicated as it has been formative, who has watched the man who is his king and his father navigate the impossible weight of being both those things across decades that have not been kind to either role. William watched his father cry and understood things that he may not have understood before that moment. He understood the Diana layer, not because anyone in that room named it, because he was in that room and he had lived the whole arc of what his mother's absence has meant, and what the institution's management of that absence has cost the people inside it. He understands what it means for Charles to sign a document advancing the future queen in a room where the ghost of the woman who was supposed to be that future queen is as present as anyone with a physical body. He felt that, differently from how his father felt it, but felt it. He understood the mortality layer too. William is not naive about his father's health in the specific way that the public communications around it would suggest. He has access to information about Charles's condition that the official briefings do not fully reflect. He knows what the urgency of this document's preparation represents, what the timing of its signing communicates about the window in which it could be signed under conditions of full royal authority. He knows his father signed this now because later is not guaranteed in the way that now is. And he sat with that knowledge in the room, while his father's tears made it visible in a way that no conversation between them had yet managed. The relationship between William and Charles, which has been through everything that two people in their specific positions could put a father-son relationship through. The public is falling out over Harry, the managed distances and the careful supervision of the working relationship beneath the personal strains. The specific grief of watching a parent become ill in ways that the parent is required by their role to minimize publicly, while the son watches the reality that the public does not see. That relationship was in the room too, when the pen moved and the tears came. And William, who has not always found it easy to be his father's son, watched the man who is his king and his father do something that cost him in ways that the institution will never fully record. He signed it, despite the cost. For William, for Catherine, for the future. William's stillness in that moment was not distance. It was not the managed containment of a future king processing an institutional event through the appropriate professional filters. It was a son watching his father love him in the most consequential way available to a king, and finding in that moment that the complicated thing between them was simpler than it had ever been. The monarchy. After the signature, what has just changed forever.
People were very excited about his first official engagement. They took him to a playgroup to play with other children, and that was really nice.
How messy is this going to be?
Just in case. Just in case.
When the pen leaves the paper and the document is witnessed and sealed and moved into the formal record of the institution that will outlast everyone who was in that room, something has permanently changed. Not just for Catherine, not just for the Wales household, for the shape of the monarchy itself, for the formal structure of an institution that has been reorganizing around its future for the better part of a year, and has now produced in this document the most official and the most irreversible expression of that reorganization that has yet existed. Let's be precise about what has changed and why the change is permanent in a way that the previous institutional moves have not been. The confrontations with Camilla, the refusals and the shutdowns and the exclusions and the property decisions, these have been significant. They have reshaped the informal landscape of the palace in ways that are real and consequential, but they have been informal, operating through the unannounced mechanisms of palace power rather than through documents with legal standing and formal witnesses and the specific constitutional weight of a reigning monarch's signature. Catherine's Ascension document is different in this specific and crucial respect. It exists formally. It is part of the institutional record. It cannot be undone by a change in atmosphere or a shift in the informal dynamics of family politics. It cannot be walked back through a quiet reversal of the kind that has always been theoretically available for the informal arrangements of the current period. It is the wall that the future is built behind. For Catherine personally, the change is like her institutional standing. She has always been significant, has always been the future queen in the practical and the formal sense. But there is a difference between being significant because of who you are married to and being significant because of who you formally are. Between having institutional standing that derives from the relationship and having institutional standing that has been formally conferred in its own right. The document Charles signed gives Catherine the second kind of standing. And the difference between those two kinds of standing becomes most visible in the specific circumstances where the first kind is most vulnerable, in the period of transition, in the months or years between Charles's reign formally ending and William's formally beginning, in the specific constitutional interlude where the informal arrangements that have governed the Wales household's authority are most exposed to challenge from the people who have the most to gain from that challenge. That vulnerability is what the document addresses, formally, permanently, without the ambiguity that informal arrangements always carry. For Camilla, the document's implications are the ones that everyone in those walls who has been paying attention to the year's worth of events has been able to see coming. What Charles signed is the formal completion of the picture that his previous inactions and William's previous actions may be more limited than the public communications around his health have suggested. He wanted it signed, have been sketching across the months of confrontations and refusals and exclusions. The picture shows a monarchy whose future is formally structured around William and Catherine, not around the configuration of the current reign, not around the accommodations that Charles's personal history required the institution to make, around the specific household that the institution's formal future belongs to. Camilla's position in that picture is not erased. The formal courtesies that her title commands will be maintained with the precision the institution applies to these things. She is the king's wife. That does not change with a document conferring status on another person. But the formal advancement of Catherine's institutional standing, relative to Camilla's, produces a visible shift in the hierarchy of the monarchy's future that the informal politics of the previous months have been building toward, but that only a formal document of this type makes official. Catherine is formally ahead, in a way that is now documented, legal, beyond the reach of the informal maneuvering that has characterized the relationship between the two women's relative positions within the palace's power landscape. For the Sussex situation, the document's implications are perhaps the starkest of all, because what Charles signed is not just an advancement of Catherine's position. It is a formal structuring of the monarchy's future that does not include Harry in its architecture. Harry is in the line of succession. That fact does not change. But the document that formally advances Catherine's institutional standing, in the specific way this document does, is a document about the working monarchy, about the people who carry its operational weight, about the formal acknowledgement of contribution to the institution's functioning. And Harry has not been part of the institution's functioning since the departure. His absence from the working monarchy is not just a personal and social reality. It is now formally reflected in the institutional landscape. In the gap between what the document formalizes for Catherine and what no equivalent document exists to formalize for Harry, Charles signed that gap into official existence too, along with the tears, along with everything else the pen carried when it moved. And now the monarchy, after the signature, faces the specific and ongoing challenge of all institutions that have formally committed to a future, the challenge of living up to what the document says, of ensuring that the formal structure reflects the operational reality, and that the people it advances are supported to carry the weight the formality places on them. Catherine, who will wake up in the same life she had before the signature, with the same children and the same husband and the same daily demands of the role she has been performing, with the addition of a formally documented standing that changes what the institution owes her in terms of support and recognition, and the specific protections that formal standing makes available. She has earned what Charles signed, in the long, quiet, unglamorous way that things of genuine value are always earned inside institutions that have been around long enough to tell the difference between the appearance of commitment and the real thing. The real thing signed the document, in a room where the tears were the truest testimony to what the signature meant. Not weakness, not sentiment for its own sake. The specific and human cost of a king who loved the institution enough to secure its future. Even when securing it required sitting with everything the pen was carrying when it moved. The monarchy after that signature is a different institution from the one before it. The document made it so. And the tears told the truth about what made it so required. The document is signed. The tears have dried. The room has emptied. But what happened in that private space between a king and his pen will shape the British monarchy for generations. Charles did not have to sign it now. He chose to, with full knowledge of everything the signature carried, every layer of meaning, every ghost in the room, every dimension of what securing Catherine's future formally required him to sit with. He signed anyway, Because that is what loving the institution looks like when the institution asks everything of you. The future has been formally written in the hands of a king who understood exactly what it cost him. Hit subscribe, this story continues.